Hello. Today we're going to be talking about advanced resume writing. Resume writing is incredibly important in your job search. It is your marketing piece to employers. I'm coming into this presentation with the expectation that you have at least a basic understanding of resumes. Maybe you've written one in the past, you at least have one. I'm going to go through some tips, but it's really at a higher level than just a basic resume writing session. So just to give you a little bit of background, of course, purpose of the resume is to highlight skills and experience. You should be highlighting or doing an overview of your background. There should be a level of a summary of your qualifications. And the resume really is intended to land you the interview. So I've had a lot of students who think that resumes are the thing that's going to get them the job. So there's a lot of stress with that. It's really not intended to get you the job. It's just intended to get you the interview. It's both a factual presentation of yourself, so you're factually identifying your background, but it's also an opportunity for self-promotion. So for some of you, you may be more comfortable with that than others. We're taught often to not be self-promoters, but in your job search, especially in your resume, you really are doing a lot of self-promotion. The one thing the resume is not is an autobiography. So you don't have to list every single solitary thing you've ever done. For some of you, you will have to list everything you've done because you have to get it up to one page. But for those of you that have more experience, more professional experience, you need to really tailor it for the job and not just list every single solitary thing you've ever done. So sometimes there may be a summer job that you had in retail or summer lifeguard that is not necessary to list because you have 3 or 4 other much more related jobs that you can put on your resume. So like I said, it's not an autobiography. It's also not a laundry list of every job you've ever held. It's not your job description of what you're looking for, and it shouldn't be more than one page. So for some of you, that will be harder than others, but I have a lot of really good techniques for keeping a resume to one page. But for the vast majority of people who are either recent college grads or an undergrad, you really are looking at one page. 3, 4, 5 years out, you might begin to warrant a second page, but the risk with a second page is that the employer is not going to read the information. So once they're kind of going through all these resumes, they're coming in, your resume will be one of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. They may not take enough time to get to that second page. So with that second page, anything that's on there may or may not be read. If you have everything formatted in a nice way that's on one page, their eye can scan all of your information. Some of the more important things, you have to absolutely list the most important information about you in the fashion you wish to present it. So in a chronological resume, the resume will be starting with the most recent job and going backwards, but there are a lot of tricks to get around that. If the most relevant and important thing about you is 3 to 4, jobs down, you and I can work together to play with the formatting to elevate it while also staying within the constraints of a chronological resume. You want to highlight the best of your accomplishments and also the impact you had. So we're going to talk a little bit more about PAR statements as we get a little further in, but you really want to be thinking about not only the work you did in every one of these jobs, but also the impact that you may have had on that organization. So just to give you a little visual, this is a format that we use in our office. It's very contemporary, it's up to date, it's stylish, and we're going to go through each one of these sections, but for the most part, you can see there's a heading at the top, which includes the contact information. For this particular person, it also includes their LinkedIn profile URL. The next section is a summary, which is an area for you to focus on your strengths. It's your little marketing statement about yourself. It gives your resume some voice. The next section down is education. If you've studied abroad, this is where you would list your study abroad experience, or if you had an associate's degree or something before coming to Curry, you would list that here. And then your experience section. And when you use the word experience, you can include paid, unpaid, volunteer work, leadership. It doesn't have to just be jobs. If you use the word professional experience or work experience or employment for that section, that implies that you were paid for those positions. But if you just go with a general experience title, you can really highlight whatever. So if you've been, SGA president or you were a leadership in a club, you can absolutely format that. As you can see, even this example has three experiences down, has one Curry as the club because they were president. So they really wanted to pull that out into their experience section rather than burying it at the bottom of a resume in an activity section. At the bottom, in this case, we have an honors section, but you can really make that whatever works for you. So it might be activities, it might be skills, it might be interests. No resume is static. Even though we're showing you an example here, you don't have to stick to exactly this format. You can make it work for you. So some just general guidelines you should be aware of. You want to think very much about how it looks. A resume should be easy on the eye. It should be engaging to read, if there's a lot of content, if you're using paragraph form, if it's not formatted well, it's not inviting to read. The employer doesn't want to read it. You want to make sure the important elements are jumping off the page. So if an employer is going through and they just want to see, your experience or your education level, it's very easy for them to locate. You want to make sure the most relevant information is highlighted and it's the best of your best. Sometimes it might be something that you only did 1 or 2 times. That's okay. That can be a high bullet. That could be one of the first bullets listed if it's really relevant to the job that you're applying to. You don't want to just list the bullets in order of the amount of time you spend in each one of those job duty areas. So a lot of students the first bullet they write will be the thing that they did the most. Sometimes that's not the thing that's most relevant. So you really want to think, what's the most relevant of my background? How can I promote that high up in the bullets? Because they may not get to the 3rd or 4th bullet when they're reading your resume. What does it say? You want to think about how you are saying it. Are there results or impact? Are you using impactful language so you're really showing the results of the work that you did? So just to go through each section a little bit closer, in the experience section, you should include details, maybe things that might set you apart. You want to think about your skills and the strengths that were demonstrated by your actions or the completion of a task. So some students will put a skills section on their resume that says, highly organized, great time management skills. I don't like those sections because you're not giving me any proof. So in your experience section, your job duty bullets should be showing the types of activities that display the skills that you have. So rather than say highly organized at the bottom of your resume in a skills section, you would have a bullet talking about completely redoing a file system as part of your internship, going from numerical filing system to color-coded or something. You want to display your skills through the duties that you did. Think about what's relevant to the positions which you're applying. So again, it might be a task that you only did a couple of times, but it's highly relevant to the job that you're applying to. So you want to make sure that that's listed first. Again, so sort of similar, you want to bullet in the order based on relevance, not how much time you spent doing the activity. If you can, quantify whenever possible. So especially for those of you that might be going into the management or accounting or fields where numbers are a big part of the industry, saying that you had a 50% increase in customer service satisfaction or something really jumps out to people, especially in that field. Ideally, you want to start each bullet with an action verb. So you organized, you managed, you identified, you created, you did all these wonderful things as part of a job. And when you lead with an action verb, it really does help to paint the picture of you as a really impactful employee. Whenever you can, if you had an accomplishment or if you had an impact on the organization where you made a change or you made a difference, think about creating a PAR statement or an accomplishment statement. So this doesn't mean that every single one of your bullets is like this, but whenever you can embed a PAR statement, the better. So a PAR statement is where you had a problem wherever you were working or where you were doing your internship or maybe as part of a club, and it was a difficult situation that you're presented with or faced. You took an action, you took proactive steps. The result was the successful outcome. Problem, action, result. So you want to think about what you're most proud of the best, and think about sometimes if you've had past work evaluations, sometimes those are great places to go to find out the accomplishments that you've had. So here's an example. In this situation, the problem was the lack of documentation of a club budget or expenses. So this was a student who was part of a curry organization, a curry club. They established a record-keeping system using Excel, and they did some software implementation. The result was they increased accurate management of club funds. So then the accomplishment statement, the statement that they actually put on their resume, one of those bullets was established new record-keeping system using Excel, which improved club's ability to manage the budget and track expenses. So that not only showed that you did the budget, but that you actually created a new system and it had an impact. Another area to think about when you're writing these accomplishment statements is think about the tasks that you've done. What did I do to accomplish the task? How did I do it? Be specific. Why did I do it? Identify the purpose. So I often say to students that, people hire you for a reason. It's to do something, so you must have had an impact. What would happen if you weren't there? What happened after the impact that you had? What did I improve? What was the impact? Was I successful? Quantify whenever you can. So just some examples of some students that I've worked with in terms of taking their resume and taking those bullets and really expanding them out into full, complete sentences. This person, for instance, was part of the Curry College Video Game Society, and their bullets were ran meeting, took notes, organized events, fundraising, budget. I see this all the time where it's one-word bullets, two-word bullets. It's not enough. You really need to tell me in complete sentences. So then after we worked together, we were able to pull some PAR statements in and really paint a much different picture. So in this case, it's coordinate all club activities, including running weekly meetings, fundraising activities, and marketing, manage semester budget proposals and track expenses, created a new budget tracking system, which improved club's ability to accurately document expenses. So there's a PAR statement right there. Implemented new fundraising strategy, which increased fundraising totals by 50%, another PAR statement. So this shows a person that rather than before, ran meeting, took notes, fundraising budget. What does that mean? As an employer, you have no idea what they're talking about. Here, you really start to see what the person did. The bulleted section of a resume where those job duty descriptions are where employers go to figure out whether you have the skills that they're looking for. So if you're not spending a lot of time talking about it, like in this case, this doesn't tell me anything as an employer. But when I come down here, now I really start to see the type of employee that you could possibly become or that you will be, or what the product is that I might be hiring. Some additional action verbs. We actually do have a list. I've posted it on the Blackboard site of action verbs that gives you a little bit of brainstorming and some, sometimes reading these, you start to remember some of the stuff that you've done in past jobs. Some resume do's, some important elements you absolutely have to proofread. It is so important that you are not submitting any resume document that has even the slightest editing mistake. Because of the number of applications for every position out there, employers are looking for a reason to get rid of you. So the slightest little typo, editing mistake will send you in the trash can very, very quickly. Ideally, you want to lead each bullet with strong action verbs or active verbs. Make sure to list experience in reverse chronological order, so you always start with the most recent job and work backwards. That said, if the most impressive or relevant job ends up being 3 or 4 jobs ago, let me know. We'll work together to manipulate the format so that we can elevate it higher. Ideally, you want to keep it one page. Make sure to use the same font type and size throughout. A lot of students kind of start to play around with font and then get a little too fancy. Use good quality resume paper when you're bringing it to an interview. Most likely you're not going to be sending it in the mail as part of your application, but you should have several copies of it on you during a job interview, and you want to make sure that those copies are put on nice paper. Use capitalize, bold, italicize for emphasis throughout the resume, but make sure you're staying consistent. So if you're deciding that you're going to bold every company name, make sure that you're bolding every company name throughout. A lot of students will start to do it and then will sort of forget. And always send your resume as a PDF file. By sending it as a PDF, you are minimizing the risk that when they open up the document, there's any issues like the font not translating, or they don't have the same version of Word, or you did it on a Mac and they're on a PC and there's some glitches. If you save it as a PDF, it actually looks nicer. It looks like a published document. It doesn't have any squiggly lines that may be pointing to mistakes that really aren't there. It makes it nice, clean, sharp, professional. It also protects your document so they're not going to accidentally delete anything. So make sure that you're sending that and that you're titling the document appropriately. So I always say use your first name and last name, comma, and then what the document is. So it might be Liz Darren, comma, resume. You're sending the cover letter in a separate document. That should be Liz Darren, comma, cover letter. So the employer knows what it is that they're opening. Some don'ts. Make sure not to include any personal information like age, gender, religion, political affiliation, marital status, health status, social security number, or your picture. I have seen students do that. There's very few fields out there where a picture is necessary. There could be an argument made for something in the entertainment industry, but for the most part, you do not put a picture on your resume. You don't use first person either, so make sure you're not writing any I, me, my's, we. Try not to use passive phrases like responsibilities included, duties involved. You really want to be using some action verbs and painting a much stronger picture of your impact. We don't use references available upon request as a statement on our resume anymore. You'll see those still out there. It's an older way of doing things. It's not necessary to state that. All you're doing is taking up important real estate on your resume. Every employer knows that if they ask for references, you're going to give them to them, so you don't need to state that. Some other don'ts, or one in particular I should say, is to not rely on spell check. We have a list here now of real examples of mistakes people have made on their resumes. And I'm just going to go through them because they are funny enough to actually go through. Revolved customer problems and inquiries. I think they meant resolved. Consistently tanked as top sales producer for new accounts. I believe they meant ranked. Planned new corporate facility at $3 million over budget. They really meant under budget. Seeking a part-time position with potential for advancement. I believe they meant part-time. Job duties: answer phones, file papers, respond to customer emails, and take orders. Again, a mistake that spell check would not have picked up. And skills: this is my favorite. Strong work ethic, attention to detail, team player, self-motivated, attention to detail. So for all of these cases, spell check would not have picked them up. So it's important that you are printing out your resume, that you're going through it with a fine-tooth comb, with a pen and paper, hard copy. You have to do it the old-fashioned way. You will not catch these types of mistakes on your computer screen. And then always make sure that there's somebody else that's taking a once over as well. Somebody in career services, somebody in your life that you know is very good at catching these types of mistakes. You would not believe the type of things that I see. I just recently saw a student who wants to get into teaching use the word principal spelled wrong with P-L-E instead of P-A-L. That's the type of thing in a school system that you can forget it. She's not going to get a single interview with that kind of mistake on her resume. So you have to be very, very careful. Just some things I want to make sure that you're taking away from this. Whenever you can, use strong PAR statements or strong accomplishment statements. You want to make sure you're tailoring this resume to the opportunity that you're applying to. A resume, again, is key to an interview. It's not key to you getting the job. Once you're in the door to an interview, it's up to you to get the job, not your resume. Please make an appointment with Career Services. We work very closely with students on developing strong resumes, and we are happy to work with all undergraduates and our alumni population. And if you have any questions, definitely feel free to email me outside of this module.